For the founders in the space with style and grace, I'm Brittany Antoinette, host of the Not So CEO talk show and founder of The Idea Girl. From work and wellness to bootstrapping and burnout, we cover all bases on building a brand, whether you're a seasoned vet or you're just getting started. Through guest interviews, water cooler combos, and office hours, we're paving way for a new era of Not So CEOs. So grab a notepad and tune in for unfiltered banter on branding, business, and bullshit. In today's episode, we learn how to go from sad girl to bad girl with Priscilla O. Agyeman, Master of Public Health. Priscilla is a creative entrepreneur, digital strategist, thought leader, and the founder of Saddie Baddies, a virtual safe space for Black and multiracial people to destigmatize mental health and initiate collective healing. Agyeman received her Bachelor's of Science in Biology from St. John's University and obtained her Master's of Public Health and Global Health from the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in New York. It was during her graduate school career that Agyeman deepened her connection to community care and mental health advocacy. Through her experience as a teaching assistant in her graduate medical anthropology course and later as a graduate researcher, she went on to publish one of the first cross-sectional studies regarding the mental health of children detained at the U.S. South Texas border. Other public health topics that Agyeman uses her platform Saddie Baddies to highlight include Black maternal health, social justice, and gender-based violence. Agyeman is also a distinguished public speaker and has led workshops, panels, and conferences for many academic institutions, brands, and businesses. Her brand, Saddie Baddies, is dedicated to bridging the gap between mental health awareness and minority communities through digital discourse, such as the podcast The Soft Life with Saddie Baddies, workshops, live events, and creative collaboration. Saddie Baddies has partnered with brands such as Nike, Pinterest, Pantene, and Rare Beauty, as well as other wellness companies and organizations. Saddie Baddies has also been featured in Health Magazine, Pop Sugar, PBS American Portrait, and Self Magazine as one of 44 mental health resources for Black people trying to survive this country. Priscilla, thank you so much for being a guest today on the Not So CEO talk show. I am so grateful to have you here. How are you doing?
Hi, Brittany. It is so good to be here with you and start my morning with you. Honestly, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Girl, excited to be here. Thank you for saying yes. Let's start with there. And as we know, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So
Yes.
What better way to kick that off with you? I mean, hello, the founder, the head in chief. I don't want to say HBIC.
HBIC, yes, HBIC.
Okay, so we don't say HBIC.
Yes,
we don't say HBIC. Of Saddie Baddies. So again, I am so grateful that you're here today. So one of the things that I want to ask you for one is, can you just share a bit about your background and what led you to become an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in New Jersey, actually. So I was born in Jersey, in Princeton. It's like this small town kind of vibe, suburbs. And when I was 18, I decided that I wanted to get the fuck out of Jersey and I moved to New York. I went to St. John's University.
In Queens.
Yes, in Queens.
Yes.
So I was there, and honestly, that's where I feel like I became myself. And, I was on my own for the first time, the whole thing. I realized that I wanted to do something bigger with my life. I just didn't know what it was. I was actually on track to be a doctor.
What?
So, yeah.
What did your parents say?
They were encouraging it. So I'm Ghanaian. So my parents are like, oh, yes, go to school, be a doctor. They're like, do the whole thing. They're encouraging me, of course. And then I realized that the pressure was getting worse. Like, it was really intense. It was getting worse. Like, it was really intense. And I just realized that if I was going to pursue this path, I was going to have to sacrifice my mental health. Like, that was number one. Like, there was no... In my reality, like, I could pretend that I was going to be okay, but the reality was I was not going to be okay because I was already having nervous breakdowns and panic attacks. Like, if I would fail an exam or if I, was struggling with a class or something, I just really couldn't live up to the demands of the realities of medical school. Um, and I studied for the MCAT and everything. Like I had, all those things ready, but I just was like, I don't think this is for me. Something about this feels like I keep meeting resistance. And so I was like, you know what, let me pivot. I decided to actually get my master's in public health. So I was home for a little bit. I went back to Jersey. I was working actually in the hospital, in the medical, the emergency department at my hometown. And I learned so much there, like in person experience. I say that this was my first real job because I learned how to deal with people in really high stress situations. And that's how
Okay.
I learned how to stay calm. So we were literally in the ER. I was working there for 2 years and I was working alongside doctors, the nurses, the physicians, physician assistants. And so I learned what it meant to have people that had severe mental illness because we would obviously go to the psychiatric unit regularly to talk to the patients, get their case notes, etc. And I realized the way that they were being treated. I was like, why are the people with mental health issues being treated the worst? Like what is that's where I learned that there was stigma when it came to mental health, specifically for Black people and people of color. And I wanted to change that just off of that experience alone. I was like, this is not right. And, people are coming in because they're suicidal or they're having a psychotic break or they're bipolar. They need help. They don't need a physician telling them like, okay, well, you just need to stop doing drugs and then you're fine, right? Like they need someone that
Mm.
has like compassion and can understand them and can provide other resources so that when they leave here a more holistic person and a healthier person. So
Because
that's
no
how,
one is just doing
yeah.
drugs for no
Right. Like,
reason.
yeah, exactly. Like and actually when I was working there was a major heroin crisis in my hometown in
Wow.
Princeton and Hightstown and like surrounding areas,
Really?
major overdoses happening every single week, like in the dozens, and even like a lot of people were struggling with heroin and also Oxycontin. So I was
Wow.
of that. Yeah. So I saw firsthand like what it was doing to people. And I decided to pursue my master's in public health after speaking to my mentor. And
Mm.
she actually was a pediatrician and she had gotten her master's from Columbia for public health. And she told me that I would be a great MPH candidate because,
Really? Wait,
yeah,
so before you continue, just because,
yeah,
and this is me just being a little oblivious, right?
yeah.
So my auntie, she also has a master's in public health. She
Okay.
graduated from NYU and she
Okay.
currently works in product management
Ooh, okay.
for Emblem Health, no, L Health
Yeah.
First. Can you
Okay.
explain
Hmm.
exactly what a master's in public
Yeah.
health is and
Yeah.
the different type of careers you have to
Yeah.
choose from, because that's very interesting to go
Yeah.
from master's of public health and then becoming a
Yeah.
pediatrician. Can you just share more about that?
Yeah, sure. So, a master's in public health and public health as a field is essentially you're studying the health of the community, you're studying the health, global health. So, there is the social determinants of health. So, in public health in graduate school, what they teach you is that, and as opposed to medical school, you're looking at symptom, diagnosis, sickness, illness. That's how you're defining health. But public health, we're looking at
Mm,
the economy, we're looking at violence, we're looking at poverty, we're looking at our water supply, like how clean your water is. We're looking at
wow.
even noise level. When I learned that your noise level in your
Yes.
neighborhood determines your health and how
Yes.
certain areas in New York or even in the Bronx or certain areas in Brooklyn have really high volumes of noise level, how
Yes.
that deteriorates the body over time. So public health
Wow.
is a really wide lens and I'm such a big picture person, so it was perfect for me to study public health. And I went on to actually do an internship for 2 months in Texas. So that internship was pivotal because I studied the behavioral changes in children who were detained at the border with their mothers.
Wow.
So that was also at the height of child separation in this country during the Trump administration. So we
Mm,
were basically creating a cross-sectional study that showed that these children were being like they are having this debilitating mental health crisis in these detention centers. And, on top of that, being separated from their parents is inhumane, obviously, but it's like we kind of needed to
Obviously.
prove it. We needed to prove it. So we surveyed 400 mothers and children, mothers with their children,
Mm-hmm.
in Spanish, and we had to basically create like a medical affidavit which showed that this is detrimental, this is inhumane, the a vulnerable population, and our findings actually showed that over 47% of the children that were there had severe PTSD symptoms, like equivalent to like veterans.
Wow.
So yeah, so we did a lot of work to advocate, on immigration health, immigration mental health. And that's really what I'm mentioning these stories because these were seeds that were planted for me to start Saddie Baddies and seeds that were planted for me to be a mental health advocate, because it's not like, oh, just do your skincare, girl, and like, like make your matcha and you're gonna be fine. Like, no, we're in the
Mm.
trenches with it. Like we're in the
You are
trenches
doing the
with it.
work.
I was
You're
doing the
doing the
act,
work.
like the field work, like literally uprooted my life, went to Texas for 2 months, like ended my lease in Brooklyn, and I was like, I have to do this. Like this is basically like my biggest body of work, like in graduate school. And I was,
Wow.
through that work, like they realized like how detrimental, child separation was. It supported the pro bono legal services that were provided at the detention center. And, eventually they stopped doing the child separation, but they do practice that in some detention centers like today still. So anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am what is the best word to use right now? Flabbergasted, astounded,
Yeah.
astonished. Um, you need your flowers. So I'm gonna just give you your flowers right now because
Thank you.
you are the epitome of beauty is skin deep, right?
Mhm.
Self-care, mental health is skin deep. What looks good on the outside isn't it isn't parallel to what's going on the inside, right?
Yeah.
So being able to take yourself out of your comfort zone and put yourself in a place as to where you can see that mental health and just health from a whole,
Yeah.
right? From a bird's eye point of view, it's holistic. And there's so many other
Yeah.
factors. You mentioned things like sound and how that impacts your
Yeah.
mental health. So,
Yeah.
perfect example, I was on the phone with my girlfriend the other night. I'm walking
Mhm.
home from the gym, so I'm just, catching up with her.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Girl, are you outside?" Because that's how
Yeah.
loud the
Yeah.
sirens were. So she goes, "No, girl, I'm just in Brownsville."
Oh my God. That's really
So
how it is though.
that's exactly how it is.
Yeah.
And I remember reading in this book, Eastern Body, Western Mind. I believe that was the book.
Mm.
And one of the
I'm
things the
gonna check that
authors
out.
mentioned was how a lot of our sense of hearing is being assaulted. Um,
1000%.
like I think I think the measurement is in decibels, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken.
Yeah.
And there's a certain limit as to what
Yes.
human brain and the
Exactly.
human mind can take.
Exactly.
But the siren, I think, is like 97, which is like
Yeah.
way above like hearing a siren. So just even
Yeah.
thinking like you're just chilling at home, you're watching TV, and then
Yeah.
you hear a siren and
Yeah.
just the emotions and
Right.
the anxiety that's being induced just from a sound. Our senses are literally being assaulted from our environments.
And we deal with that every day as New Yorkers. And we wonder why like so many New Yorkers are overstimulated, right? Everyone feels overwhelmed. And even during, the height of COVID in 2020, think about how many sirens were coming back and forth,
Yes.
right? Like, I was working at Mount Sinai actually at the time during 2020.
That's
And
crazy. So was my
yeah,
stepmother.
yeah,
She, girl, she she told me, and
yeah.
Mount Sinai is not even it's no, actually, I'm sorry, not Mount Sinai. She was at Sloan Kettering. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah, it's intense. It's really intense. And um, just taking all those aspects into it, I actually when I graduated from my graduate program, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I realized like, okay, well, I did this big accomplishment. I did this study, like, I got getting all this praise for it because it's a pivotal piece of research that had never been done before and all this stuff. And I still felt like so empty. And I ended up working at this nonprofit in Brooklyn. And it was such a toxic work environment. And the sad thing too is that it was also like primarily Black and brown. So it
Right.
really hurt me that like I'm like excited to finally work with, us and be in the same space as us, but it was a really, really toxic environment. And I ended up leaving like only like 8 months into
Wow.
yeah, I had to go. I had to go. I packed up. But in that moment, I actually started Saddie Baddies. So I'm always grateful for that role because if I was not hitting my rock bottom at that role and at my desk one day, like, what am I going to do with myself? Like, I'm so creative. I'm an artist. Like, I love to paint. I love to write. I love nature. There's so many things that I love, but I'm not sharing that because I have to make money. I have to work this 9 to 5 that's also not paying well. So I decided to create a platform called Saddie Baddies because I'm like, people don't even know what I'm going through because they just see the exterior and they think, oh, you're fine. You look happy, you look great, whatever. But I'm sad as fuck. And no, it was hard
Mm.
to even in my friendships, it was hard for people to understand that I was going through something. Like when I told them that I, would have a panic attack or I was having a depressive episode, they're like, "Really, you? Really, girl? Are you sure?"
Like
And
you're
it's
the
like,
strong friend. How
you're
is
the
that
strong
possible?
friend. Yeah, you're the strong friend. I was the mom of the group too, so people would come to me
Oh
with
Lord.
their problems. I have since rejected that role, thank God. But
Oh, same, same, same,
yeah,
same,
and
same.
I'm sure as a cancer too, you maternal,
Girl, I have to
energy
be
is
my
like
own mama. I have to be my own mama. It was an
exactly.
ego thing for me, though. I didn't
Yes,
realize it until years later. I had to be
it
really
is an
honest
ego
with
thing.
myself. Like, you feel valued when you can help people, but really and truly, you
Yes.
have to be the one to help yourself. So one day, girl, my
Yeah,
Sag mom read me. And
I
she
love
said,
it.
I think the reason why she's like, it makes no sense that you run and jump and help other people. And I
Yeah.
think you do it because you do it to avoid your own problems and fixing yourself.
Yep.
Read
Yep.
me down.
That, yep. I mean, that's so sad. It's a very sad thing. That's a very sad thing to say. And I also have a Sag mom. So when I tell you that
Listen,
the bluntness
being
is
raised by a Sag is not for
it,
the weak. My girl Kayla
no.
says this. She said, "You can't hurt my feelings." She's a Cancer. She's like, "You can't hurt my feelings. I was raised by a Sag mom."
It's literally you develop a layer of thick skin that's like it's unmatched, but it's with love, but it's just like very like blunt. It's
Blunt
very
and honest,
honest. No
you
sugarcoating.
you need it. It's
Yeah.
beautiful hearing your story and hearing how all of the pieces come together. Because if it wasn't for this job and it wasn't for you experiencing what might have
Yeah.
felt like your breaking point or you
Yeah.
at your lowest, creation was able to emerge from that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
sometimes it takes for our breakdowns to occur in order for our breakthroughs to happen.
Yeah.
So I do want to get into my next question, which is so Saddie Baddies aims
Mm-hmm.
to normalize conversations about mental and emotional health. What
Yes.
motivated you to address these often overlooked topics? And how does Saddie Baddies contribute to that mission?
Ooh. So the reason why I created Saddie Baddies is because I did not see a platform that took all of the different elements of our mental health, right? And a lot of it is what I learned in school, but I wanted to make it less WebMD-ish, right? Like anytime I would look up like depression, it was like call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. I'm like, okay, but I'm not there yet. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I needed something like a buffer between like me feeling like cycles of like maybe a depressive episode or dealing with an anxiety or changes, transitions. I wasn't seeing content that was specific to that. So Saddie Baddies became this lifestyle as well as mental and emotional health because what we did is we take real life scenarios, right? We talk about breakups. We talked about, how to deal with COVID, how to deal with being the only Black person at your job, how to deal with toxic friendships. Like, right? Like we take these situations that do impact our mental health and instead of it being like go to your local psychiatrist. And so it's not that we're actually doing the opposite of like pushing people away from treatment and resources. That is valuable, but what is really important is the self-preservation, right? Like the
Mm,
self-care, the self-preservation, that also ties into community care and community preservation as well, right? Because
yes.
if you have resources that you can share, if you have resources that you can allocate to other people, what's going to be really helpful is if you understand how on a micro and a macro level your well-being affects everything else, you're going to be more likely to, okay, when you do see a neighbor in need, or you do see somebody that needs help, or you need to call a friend, you can have that softness, you can receive that because you're also taking care of yourself. And now that cup that's overflowing can be shared with other people, right? And that's how we start initiating collective healing. So that's just some of the reasons why we started Saddie Baddies, and we have this like very specific focus. And what I was learning is through sharing that and just being open and honest and not sugarcoating things. We're talking about suicidal ideation, we're talking about self-harm, because a lot of Black women suffer in silence, and we wonder why. Oh my God, what happened? Like, where were the signs? When we can't show up as ourselves, how are we going to be able to ask for help, right? We need to have a buffer. And the whole point of Saddie Baddies is to create a palatable discussion about mental health in our community so that we are removing the stigma. With every single post, with every single podcast episode, every video, every event that we have, we're pulling and chipping away at this big stigma that has been created for literally centuries. And it
Yeah.
sometimes it makes me emotional, because I'll be completely honest with you, a big reason why I started Saddie Baddies was for my grandmother, my late grandmother, who suffered tremendously with her mental health. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and she
Mm,
suffered until the day she died with her mental health.
mm, wow.
So I do this as an ode to her. I do this as an ode, and I've never shared that before, but I do this as an ode to her, and I do this to show people that when I talk about softness, it's not because I'm talking about just Black girl luxury. I'm talking about the softness that my ancestors didn't get, right?
Mm,
And it is my life's work. It is my responsibility to share that softness with the world, no matter how you receive it or not. I'm going to practice it because that is my saving grace.
wow. I'm trying not to tear up. I'm trying so
Me
hard. I'm
too.
fighting back. I'm
Me
fighting back
too.
the
Me
tears.
too. Me too.
Your grandmother is, for one, she is nowhere but right with you.
Yeah.
And she is helping you amplify, empower this mission. And it's funny because in the Idea Girl, I always used to have this saying, if your why doesn't make you cry, your business won't survive.
Ooh.
And
Ooh, that's a bar.
I I used to have it where I would really think about my mission. My mission is pretty deep,
Yes,
very
yes.
similar to you.
Yeah, yeah.
And for you to be able to create something out of pain and being able to transmute it into passion and into purpose is a beautiful thing. So thank you for
Thank
even feeling
you.
safe enough to share.
Yes.
That is a beautiful thing. And wow, like I'm completely astonished. Like this is just so
Yeah,
beautiful. And I'm so grateful that we have a leader like you in our community,
thank
because
you.
even as Black women, our mental health is, I feel like we talk about mental health and we think that's synonymous with self-care. And it's two completely different things.
Yes,
A lot
yes,
of us forget that the brain is an organ that controls
yes.
of all of the other organs in our
Mm-hmm.
body. Our brain tells our stomachs, this is how much acid you need to digest
Yep.
steak. Our brain tells us, hey, this memory during this time, you felt sad. So anything that
Yes.
triggers that, you're going to feel that same emotion
Yes.
again.
Yep.
And understanding that the brain is not just a storage place, think of the
Yeah.
brain as like a control center or
It
a
literally
command
is.
center. It's
It
not
is.
meant to hold on
Yeah.
to the things that happened to
Yeah.
you from
Yeah.
1998, right?
Yeah.
It's meant for you to be able to create your reality. I'm actually
Yeah.
reading Becoming Supernatural by
Oh, I
Dr.
love
Joe.
that book.
Girl, let me, y'all,
Girl,
please, if there is a book that I am going to tell anyone to get, it is
that book,
Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe
Joe
Dispenza.
Dispenza,
I am almost finished with this book. And
life
one of the
changing.
things I took from this book, which is amazing, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
anyone can apply this to their lives, he talks about creating a mind movie. And
Mm.
basically, the concept of a mind movie, it's like beyond a vision board. He explains that the human mind can easily be programmed. That's why when we see commercials talking about certain
Yeah.
medications and whatnot, they're late at night or first
Yeah.
thing in the morning. And it's meant to trick your subconscious mind into believing that this is something that you need, or tricking you into believing that,
Yes.
okay, there's a commercial on shingles and you might have had chickenpox before. And you're like, oh, damn, do I got shingles
Do I
or
got shingles?
am I gonna get shingles? So he says you
Yes.
need to program your mind the same way.
Yeah.
So what he recommends is putting yourself in a mind trance, or putting yourself
Mhm.
in a trance. And you can do this by looking at a kaleidoscope. So you can
Yes.
create a movie, you can use Canva, add a kaleidoscope video for like the first 8 minutes. And then after that, add images of what you want in your life.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
for me, for example, I want to move, I am moving to Paris, right?
Paris,
So,
Paris,
j'habite à Paris. Oui, oui, oui,
Paris.
oui. So
Oui,
I'm
oui.
I'm moving, right? So I already have this in my mind. So I'm
Oh,
going to include images of the Eiffel Tower. I'm going to
yes.
include images of like the patisserie on the corner.
Oh,
I'm
that
going to
accent.
Oh yeah, yeah. Mon français est très bon. Oui. I've been studying
I
for
love
like
it.
a
I love
year.
it.
I was like, I am moving. I don't know how, but let me just start by learning the
You're
language.
doing
Because
it
if
though.
I
You're literally doing it.
and it's the thing, right? It's because we could have all of these wishes, but what is a wish without action, right? So
It's
reading
a
the
hope.
book,
Yep.
it's literally taught me, like, I have my mind movie. So anytime that I find myself about to get frustrated, he
Yeah.
recommends, like, you're sitting in traffic and someone cuts you off. Instead of you sitting there feeding into your emotions and
Yes.
using your brain in that capacity, draw your attention to your mind movie and think about the life you're about to have. He's like, it's so easy for us to break a meditative state.
Yep.
You can meditate for 15 minutes in the morning, and the moment someone pisses you off, you
You
lose
forget
that
it.
peace.
Yep.
So he's like, go back to your mind movie. And that has been the most helpful thing I have ever learned my entire life. I'm pretty sure I have a whole bunch of things I've learned my entire life,
Honestly,
but that is one of the most helpful.
when you literally just reminding me to go back and reread that book because I read it in
Please do.
2020. I read it in 2020, highlighted a bunch of notes, but I feel like life just like, you forget like all the
Yes.
gems. I'm like, you're so right. I remember reading that about the mind movie, and I did more of like a vision board, but I think the movie aspect of it being actually,
Like,
something
watch your
that you
own
can
show. Like,
watch.
watching your future is nuts.
Yes. That's timeline jumping. I mean, if we want to get
The
woo woo
book
with
is
it,
literally
that's
about
literally
quantum
about
physics.
quantum physics.
Girl, you are my
Literally.
people.
Yeah. We right here. We right here. We're
That is some real sad shit, okay? Like, the moment you start talking about the occult, the moment you start talking
and
about
I'm a
quantum
Scorpio moon and
physics,
rising. So I'm into,
chemistry,
yep.
you're what
I'm
rising?
Scorpio moon and rising.
Oh my gosh. It's gonna go deep. It's
It's
going
getting
it's,
deep.
it's going down. I do want to ask you, so we're talking about going down, right?
Mhm.
What were some of the biggest obstacles you faced when building Saddie Baddies,
Mm.
and how did you overcome them?
Ooh. Okay, so I would say one of the biggest obstacles was balancing my 9 to 5 and having Saddie Baddies, right? So right
Mm.
now I do work a 9 to 5 or 9 to 5. I work full time as a content strategist. So I work at an
Mm.
agency, a digital agency, and it's fully remote, which allows me a lot of space and flexibility in my schedule to take the morning if I need to do something and then, work on what I need to do in the afternoon. So I have a lot of flexibility, which I am
Mm.
so grateful for. Literally yesterday I was going to the store randomly at like 8:30 or whatever, and I used to literally take the bus right across the street to go to the other job that I had, which was not remote and I had to be in the office. And I remember being like, damn, I can't wait to like just work from home. And I'm like, literally, I'm like, I did it, like, and I think that that balance of having a 9 to 5 and also having a business, to some people, I think especially in New York, it's definitely sensationalized. Like entrepreneurship is romanticized in LA and New York and certain,
Absolutely.
it's people like, oh yeah, like it's not sexy all the time. I would even say it's harder than having a 9 to 5 because you are betting 1000% on yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I look at some of my role models like, Sharifa Murdoch and Laura Stiles, who we just had on the podcast recently, and they were talking about how they both have 9 to 5s, but they built this amazing,
Yes.
empire essentially with Envision Festival and how, they're inspiring women that if you are in that balancing act to give yourself grace, right? And that was definitely an obstacle at first because of the types of roles that I had that didn't offer me flexibility. I remember when I did the campaign with Nike and I had to lie because I just started my first job, this new job, and it was at a startup, a biotech startup at that. So it
Wow.
was very like intense. Like I was literally wearing like a lab coat and doing like lab work. And then
Yes,
half the
lab
time
baddie.
listen,
She was a lab baddie.
I was
She
a
went from
Hannah
sad baddie to lab
Lab
baddie.
Daddy. I was Hannah Montana with it. Okay. I was Hannah Montana with it for almost 2 years.
Not
But
Hannah Montana.
I really was. I really was. And I remember when I did the Nike campaign, I had just started. So I had to basically come up with a lie like, hey, I'm not going to be available. I'm like, it was 2 weeks into the job. And that first 2 weeks, you're like, you really just have to show up and you have to be there. And I found a way to finesse out of it. And I was like, listen, I'm doing this campaign because
Right.
y'all not gonna stop me from what is really like my life's work, right? So I found a way to finagle and get out of it. But those were like the obstacles that I was dealing with. It was more like my time flexibility and my time being autonomous to me. And now I truly do feel like I have so much time autonomy and I'm so grateful because I know what it's like to not have that. And I just want to
Mm.
encourage anyone who is working a 9 to 5 or like is building a business or does not know where to start to be patient with yourself. You have to understand that if you are looking on TikTok and you're going on TikTok and you're seeing these girls with their morning routines that like the whole day is a morning routine, basically. It's
Yeah.
like they're so like when are you actually working? I'm confused.
Right.
Or like you're watching a vlog and it's like, oh, okay, like the biggest errand that person has to do today is like go to the post office and return something, right? And they're like, okay, this is like my big thing of the day. And then I'm gonna go back home and like take a 2 hour walk and whatever. Stop comparing yourself to people. You are not them. Your life is
Mm.
so unique and so beautiful. And that's what makes you fucking authentic. Stop comparing yourself to people. It is detrimental to your creativity. It's detrimental to your authenticity and it's detrimental to you showing up fully as yourself because when you keep comparing yourself to someone who has more time allowance than you do, maybe you're a parent, there's a lot of different reasons why someone doesn't have the same time or 24 hours in a day. And you're
Mm.
right, we have the same 24 hours as Beyonce, but we're not Beyonce. Like, you
Mm.
have to kind of, I feel like I was getting stuck in that sometimes, like, oh, I'm not creating as much content or I'm not growing as fast. I'm growing at such a steady and consistent and sustainable pace
Mm.
that makes me so assured that in 5 years, Saddie Baddies is still going to be here.
Mm.
I
It's
have no
sustainability.
doubt.
It's
I
giving
have no doubt because
sustainability.
I practice sustainable wellness and I practice sustainable entrepreneurship. And that means slowing down. It means outsourcing. It means hiring people to do certain things that you cannot do or someone can
Mm.
do better. And it's allowing yourself, giving yourself the grace so that you can be in this for the long haul.
Mm.
That's how,
Sustainable wellness and
yeah,
sustainable
entrepreneurship.
entrepreneurship. I
Yes.
love that because a lot of us don't think about the long haul, right? We
Yeah.
care about getting things done now, now, now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my mother helped me understand this one day because
Mm.
one thing about me, I'm Leo ruled. So I want it done and I want it done now. That is just how I am. That's how I've always been. But then I got to a point where I even looked at my goal list for the year, and I said to my
Yeah,
like I meet with my friends once a week, and we like plan our goals for the year,
I
for the
love that.
week. We do weekly planning, and I literally said to myself, I planned on launching 2 courses this year, and I said to myself, girl, that's impossible. Like, you just entered into a program that's going to take up 3 days out of your week.
Yeah,
How are you? This is not even realistic at this point. And
yeah,
you're right. Time is a luxury,
it
right?
is.
And
The biggest
granted,
luxury we have.
we have the same 24 hours in a day as
Yeah,
Beyonce, but Beyonce is also super rich, but Beyonce also works to the bone.
the
Okay.
bone.
So do we
Yeah,
even want to work like
yeah,
Beyonce? And we have to be okay with what that looks like for us,
yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
it's freedom. So the next thing I want to ask you is building a community around a sensitive topic like mental health typically requires trust and authenticity. How do
Mm.
you cultivate and nurture the community aspect of Saddie Baddies? And what role does it play in your business model?
Ooh, that is
I
such
got
a good
questions. Ew.
period. That is such a good question. Oh, community is everything. Community is at the
Hmm.
center of everything we do. And I really mean that because if it's not going to benefit the community, I won't even create a post if it is not something that people can share with each
Mm.
other. Like, there's no point. You know
There's
what I'm
no
saying?
point.
There's no point. So it has to be something that is really community focused. And I would say, looking at the community from the Saddie Baddies lens and that perspective, it informs everything we do. So everything that we create or produce needs to be something that's tangible. There needs to be some type of takeaway at the end of the day that people can take, whether it's a laugh, whether it's inspiration, whether it's education, whether it's motivation, whatever it is, people need to be able to take something away, right? And I also think that community in terms of like our IRL community is essential too. And I think the network that I've been able to build and create, just by being authentic and not forcing myself. Like, I don't force myself to be in rooms that I don't feel comfortable in. If I don't feel comfortable somewhere, I'm gonna leave. Like, I'm
I'm
a,
leaving. I
literally,
gotta go.
I'm gone. I'm gone. If it's not like, for me, also community for me means feeling safe, right? And
Yes.
I have created such a safe space and a sanctuary in my home with my partner. And I if it doesn't feel if it's not like equivalent to that or better, like, I'm not going. Like, I feel
I'm staying home.
I'm staying home. I'm staying home. And I think when you realize like how important that is to your mental health and your nourishment, it shows up in the way that you can walk into a room, right? Like, if you feel grounded and at ease, you've had time to take care of yourself. When you walk into a room or you go to an event or you go to network or you go to see friends, you're going to come with so much more light. I think you're going to come with more
Mhm.
feeling safe and grounded, and you can again like transmit that to other people. Because I'm a big believer in like you can feel people's energy when they walk into a room, and you
Yes.
like when you come in with that like that frustration or feeling insecure or feeling even like jealous or whatever those like emotions are coming up, and there's nothing wrong with those emotions, but they're intense emotions, right? So
Emotions are motion, right? You can feel.
that you can feel it. You can feel it. So I really am mindful of the way that I show up. And that also means, for example, if I'm not in the headspace to do a podcast episode because I'm going through some shit, I won't do it. If I don't want to be online for a few days because I want to go on a hike and go get a massage and do some yoga or go to hot yoga or Pilates and take care of myself, then I'm gonna do that. And then I'm gonna show up online when I feel ready to. That also means sometimes like maybe turning down a brand deal that doesn't feel aligned or an opportunity that doesn't resonate and doing everything like spirit led. So community helps me because it forces me to always like look at the resonance and everything that I do. And also how can I be of service is kind of the question that I always come back to. Um,
Mm.
and a lot of times the answer to that is me taking care of myself allows me to be of service to other people. It's not
Yes.
like me serving and being a people pleaser is going to make my community better. No, it's going to actually deteriorate it if I do it in that way. And again, going back to like sustainable entrepreneurship, I really want to make sure that I'm always feeling level and I have that like equilibrium that makes
Mm.
me able to show up even like 5 years into this. I started this in 2019. It's 2024. I started this with no money. I was borrowing. I borrowed my cousin had a laptop that she wasn't using anymore. She gave me her laptop. I signed up for Canva. And then little by little, I, got better skills than like the shitty thing I was doing on Canva at the time. I learned how to outsource to having a graphic designer and a web
Yeah.
designer, etc. Like, you grow up and you develop these skills as you grow, but it has to come from a place of love and it cannot come from trying to like force yourself to do things or be in spaces that don't belong to you.
What I love most about what you said, and I think this can just resonate with anyone who has a community, right? When
Mm-hmm.
you show up as yourself and when you show up as your authentic self and when
Mm-hmm.
you're vulnerable, that is when you are able to cultivate community. When
Yeah.
when people are able to see themselves in you,
Yeah.
right? You want to reflect back to
Yeah.
people. So by you taking care of yourself and prioritizing yourself and putting yourself first, you're inspiring everyone else around you, the people who listen to you on the air, the people who follow you on Instagram, to put themselves first in
Yeah.
their lives too. And that's where we also have to be responsible, right? Because we don't want to train the next generation of people pleasers. We
Right.
are
Yes.
unlearning and undoing
Yes.
a lot of the traditions and the habits that was passed down to us. And being Black woman, right? Being women of color,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we have this tendency. I mean, we grew up in a patriarchal society, right?
Exactly.
So we are used to serving everyone first and
And
us
then outside.
last. So I
Yep.
think it's brave and it's courageous, but it's also mandatory
It
that you
is.
put yourself first in order to help everyone else. You can't
Yeah.
pour from an empty cup. I
You
like to
can't.
refer it as, you're driving around, but your fuel tank is
Mm-hmm.
on E. How are you going to get
Mm-hmm.
from here to here to here to here? But
Mm-hmm.
balancing work and wellness is
Mm-hmm.
crucial for long-term
Yes.
success, as we said, for sustainability. How
Mm-hmm.
do you prioritize your own mental health while managing the demands of running a business and working a full-time job
Mm-hmm.
and being a fiance? And what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs struggling with this balance as well?
Okay, I'm going to start with actually the relationship part. I think that as Black women, we sometimes are the sacrificial lamb in our relationships. And I urge you to reject that. I urge you to have,
Mm.
if you are looking for a partner, especially a man, a male partner, make sure that that person is extremely supportive
Mm.
or don't even
A
bother.
backbone,
A man,
a
okay? A
man,
man, a real man.
a real man.
Right, praise God, because that's something that I told myself like I'm not going to settle, and I want to make sure that the partner and the person that I'm spending my life with is somebody that I know, like if I need to fall back, that they got me. And I'm so grateful
Mm.
that my fiance is also Leo. So he's like,
Ew.
he's yeah, just naturally like protective, provider. Like he has those elements that like make me feel safe and make me feel
Mm.
like soft, right? So I encourage you that not to compromise when it comes to that, because when you do find somebody that you know has you on all types of levels, it creates a safety and a softness that I can't really put into words, to be honest. And that is a
Mm.
big, big part of my wellness. Like me having, like looking to my left and seeing, okay, like if I know if I can't figure it out or something, or if I need help, or if I need to cry, like he's got me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm
Mhm.
very, very grateful to Eddie for that. But as far as like my personal self-care, I've actually taken a break from talk therapy for a while. And I think because I was in talk therapy for almost like four to five, for a while, yeah, for like 4 years. And I had tried different therapists. I realized that even though therapy and talk therapy was really helpful for me to get things out of my chest, what I was starting to do was intellectualize everything.
Oh,
And
same, same. It's
Sag
like, girl, I already
me.
know what you're gonna say. I know what I should. That's literally why I moved to somatic therapy instead.
That's exactly. Somatic therapy, movement, exercise, food. So those are things that I've been leaning into because I realized like the talk therapy was sometimes, and it's kind of weird to say, it almost made me like feel stagnant, right? Like I would have these
Mm,
big breakthroughs in therapy and talk about really heavy stuff, like some real shit. And then I would be like, what do I do with these feelings besides cry? What do I do
mm,
with this? I want to transmute this. And so when I started
yes.
leaning into somatic therapy, every morning I do basically it's like a really simple self-care practice to support your vagal nerve. And this is what your vagus nerve, sorry, that that is really what controls your like you feeling like understimulated, overstimulated.
Oh,
You know,
the
you're
mind gut
yeah,
connection is
yeah,
a real
exactly. The mind
thing.
gut, right. So your nervous system. So what I've been doing is like waking up, doing like some ear stretches and like pulling my ear, which sounds weird, but it really does like help to like physically make you feel in your body. Because if you're someone who can
Mm,
go throughout the whole day but feel like dissociated, or go throughout the whole day but feel like you're not in your body, like this really comes, it grounds you physically. So I'll like, touch my neck softly, and then I'll do some like heart massages and just like gently like touch my heart, a space, and literally any emotions that come up for me from the past day, like I'll feel it. Like I'm like, okay, yesterday I felt frustrated, or I felt maybe betrayed, or maybe I felt angry, right? And those feelings, literally feeling them and massaging them out,
mm.
like feeling your feelings. And after that, like I kind of wrap it up with like a gratitude and a prayer. And then, I'll go on my day and just try to keep checking in with myself. Putting cold water in your face to kind of wake you up and not just grab your phone and scroll. Like the dopamine you get from putting some cold water in your face is better than going on TikTok first thing in the morning when you haven't even like brushed your teeth, right?
I ain't gonna lie. I am guilty of scrolling. Okay.
Me too. Me
I'm a
too. That's
little
why.
I'm a little guilty, right? But it's
Me too, but I had to put those safeguards because I was
yes.
realizing like I was
Creating
getting,
boundaries for yourself.
yes, it's creating boundaries for myself because I was getting sucked into like these like comparison traps, these like just like also chaotic because like just social media is a chaotic
It's
space.
a
It's not,
wild space. It's the
it's
wild, wild west.
wild. It's wild. So, checking in with yourself, and then obviously like your physical health, like making sure that you're eating like nourishing food, having a lot of protein. If you're someone with hormonal imbalances, like myself, like, making sure that you're having the supplements and eating the whole foods that are going to support your menstrual health too, right? Like cycle syncing. There's so many things that we can do to support ourselves. So that all ties into our mental health. And I think our mental health is more physical than we think. Like it's
Mm,
emotional, but it's also very physical. It's very much like when you go outside and you take a walk, like you wake up and you actually get some fresh air versus being inside all day, there's a big difference to how clear you feel, right? You feel more
absolutely.
grounded, you feel more optimistic about things. And um even during the winter time, I try my best to like get outside at least for like 30 minutes a day and just get some fresh air. And I'm like, "Ah, I'm a new woman." Like it feels
Ah.
amazing. It feels amazing. And I say that as someone who struggles, I'm a Saddie Baddie. I'll be sad.
It's like
So
as soon as the sun hits, you hear
mhm.
making my way downtown, walking
Walking
fast,
back.
faces past, and I'm homebound. That's literally what it feels
Exactly.
like, especially if you're in the
Exactly.
city and you see the buildings. It's like a new life,
It's
a
literally
whole
like
new
everything.
world.
You might be stepping over dog shit and rats, but guess what? I'm here. I'm I'm here.
the joys of being in New York City. I love for one, I love all the techniques that you named, but I think
Mhm.
one of the most important ones, and for those who are not familiar with somatic
Yeah.
therapy is therapy that's focused on moving emotions and essentially feeling your emotions and being able to move them out your body. Because
Yeah.
if you take off the E, not my alarm, if you take off the E, right, it's
Mhm.
motion. So emotion,
Yes. Yes.
emotions flow, they move. But what we
Yes.
don't realize is that emotions can get trapped inside of our body. What happens when
Yeah.
someone pisses you off? Like, I mean, someone does you dirty, right?
Yeah.
You dirty. And you are angry in that moment,
Yeah.
or you
Yeah.
are passive about it.
Mhm.
Where does that anger go? Right.
Right.
So I remember reading this book by Judith Anodea. I hope I'm saying her
Mm.
name correctly. The book is called Eastern Body, Western Mind.
Okay. I'm gonna
And
write it
what
down.
the book does, it marries Western psychology practices
Mhm.
with Eastern practices. So it's based on the chakra system. So what they do is they compare the endocrine system, which, is all of our hormonal glands, and
Yeah.
they align it with each chakra point in the body. So I remember, for example, the thymus gland, that is the heart chakra. The pituitary gland, that is the third eye chakra. And it's just so amazing the way they broke it down. So one of the things they mentioned in the book about somatic therapy is like, for example, if you're angry, a somatic
Mhm.
therapist will have you do things like punch a pillow to get
Right.
that anger out.
Mhm.
Or if you felt abandoned as a child, they'll make you hold your hands out as if
Right.
you're reaching for a hug to help get that
Yes.
emotion out of your
Yes.
body through physical motion. That's why honestly I love working out. If anyone follows me on
You've
Instagram,
been in the gym.
girl, I built my BBL per. Like I
Period.
I
BBL
literally went from
allegations.
girl, I'm never beating the BBL allegations. I went from 125, I weigh 165 and it's all solid muscle.
I know
Yeah.
that's right.
It's all solid muscle, baby. And
She
people are
said
like,
this is a
what
muscle
did you do?
wagon.
What did you do? I'm like, girl, I eat 3 times a day. People are like, oh, do you eat? I'm like, girl, no, because you don't even realize you're not
Yeah.
eating sometimes. You're not eating
Yeah.
3 times a day. You're
Yeah.
running all over the place. And then hormones, right?
Yes.
Like, are
Yes.
your hormones operating at its fullest
Yeah.
capacity? Because if not, again, going back to the endocrine system,
Yeah.
your body is not going to respond the same way to environmental stressors, the same way
Exactly.
another person's body is going to.
Yeah.
So it's really important to find other ways of healing outside of talk therapy, especially if you feel like you're getting to the point where you're intellectualizing your conversation with your therapist. Like, girl, I already know what you're going to say. I came here with my
Exactly.
notes and I know where I'm wrong. But one thing that I do want to ask you is because obviously mental health awareness,
Hmm.
mental health challenges are common amongst entrepreneurs. And
Yes.
I'm pretty sure you know that fact. What strategies or resources do you recommend for managing stress, anxiety, or other mental health issues while
Mm.
building and growing a business?
I think that for entrepreneurs, you need to have a team. And even if your
Mm,
your your work is like, when I say team, I mean more than one person operating the business. That could
yeah.
be an assistant, that could be even a virtual assistant. Like now there is so many ways to have like virtual support.
There's AI.
AI is ChatGPT, like use technology. Like it's 2024. You know what I'm saying? Like the girls are able to outsource. We're able to like, okay, if you need other ways and forms of support, like do that 1000%. Having a team and having people that can also check in with you. Like I know you mentioned
Mm,
that you have friendship dates once a week and you
yeah.
guys talk. That is like a great example. Like I'm gonna borrow from you because that is a great
Take
example.
it.
That's a
Take it.
great, that is a great way to have that, especially among women, right? Like
Yes.
that is essential. Having those like check-ins with your friends does more for our mental health than we, I think, give it credit to, especially when you
Mm,
have good friends that really love you and see you for who you are. But I definitely think that having time, like scheduling in your self-care. So maybe if you are someone that's going to be working at a desk all day or you're doing something that's like involves a lot of sitting, having time, like, okay, at 7 a.m. or whatever time, 10 a.m., I'm going to take a walk for 30 minutes. And creating that as important as a meeting.
Yeah.
Literally making it like, okay, you have all these things to do, you have all these deliverables. Cool, but where are you scheduling time for self-care? Where are you scheduling time to make yourself a meal that's like wholesome? Even if it's you picking something up from Whole Foods and then making the sides at home, whatever it is,
Right.
right? You could cheat it. Like I definitely that's listen, I'm not Nara Smith, love her down, but
I
I love
love her
her.
down.
I love her. I love her. You can never
She
make me hate
actually
her.
makes everything because she suffers
She's
from
from
really
ex,
bad
yeah,
eczema.
she has,
Yeah.
right. She has an autoimmune disease. She's lupus as well. She's
Oh,
eczema. So
wow.
yeah, so that's why she makes everything from scratch because all the things that we put in our food in America is it causes flare-ups, it causes inflammation. I'm like, I understand if I was her, I would be doing the same thing, but also I don't have 20 hours in a day to cook
Exactly.
bread.
So what can you do
What can you
that
do?
works for you?
This all goes back to like like applying it to yourself, right? But I definitely think entrepreneurs having even a business coach or an a business coach is a great way to get that support because a lot of times people will come to you for answers, but sometimes you need someone else to talk to and get, their perspective. Right now, I don't have a business coach, but that is a goal that I have for this year is to hire a business coach and start working with them one-on-one because I think it's such an underrated resource for entrepreneurs. One
Yes.
thing I am doing though is in my 9 to 5 role, they have so I'm in this cohort of Black talent, and it's all Black mid-career level talent. And I'm in this program where essentially it's 4 months long. They sign you up with a career coach, as well as like they have like these in-person and virtual live sessions. And that is a resource for me because even though, I already have like my business and whatnot, I'm learning skills through this free resource that my job is providing. I'm like, I'm going to
Mhm.
take advantage of it, right? So if you have employee wellness or employee assistance programs at your job, use that shit. Use that shit because
Mm.
that is what even got me into therapy when I first started going. When I was in grad school, I was going through my graduate program that offered free therapy for students. Like whatever free
Mm.
resources that you have, don't be too proud to use them. Like, there's nothing wrong with using them. That's
I
why
ain't too proud to beg.
I am too proud of Bay, honey. All right. I love me a freebie. So I'm definitely all for working smarter, not harder, and
Yes.
having the support you need and also saying no.
Uh,
Sometimes say
no is
no,
a
but like
complete
say
sentence.
no. But
No
like, no, I'm
explanation,
not
no
doing that.
essay.
Yeah, I'm not doing that, or no, that doesn't feel good. No, I don't have time. No, that doesn't align with me. No, I don't have the bandwidth. It's
No, that doesn't
okay.
align with me is my favorite.
I love it. I love it. Quite, it's a
Love it.
it's just a calm, like it's a soft rejection. And I think we need to do that more so that we can show up more authentically as ourselves because so many of us are doing this like run around with people or like, oh, like, can I pick your brain? And you don't want that person to pick your brain. So
I
stop
gotta do a
letting them
whole
try to do that.
girl. I literally have to do a whole episode on the picking your brain thing, but I think that it's society, right? It's
Yeah.
especially being online, you become accessible to people,
Yes.
but it's really
Yes.
important to establish those boundaries for yourself. It's
Absolutely.
necessary, it's essential. There's a saying, a yes to someone is a no to yourself.
Yes.
Right. So every time you find yourself saying yes, 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 yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
you then end up growing resentful all because you didn't have your boundaries in place. I went through that so much throughout my
Yeah.
career where I would take
Yeah.
on so much more because I cared about how I looked to other people.
Yeah.
And
Right.
after a while, you go through it and you get drugged through the trenches and you
Yes.
realize this is self-sabotage. Like I am
For
setting
sure.
myself up for failure. This is my fault. But I do have another question. Building a supportive community is essential for many businesses. What
Mhm.
steps did you take to foster a sense of belonging and support within the Saddie Baddies community? And how can other entrepreneurs emulate this approach?
Ooh. Oh, these questions are just so
Pew, pew,
well.
pew.
Pew pew pew. Like
Call
this.
me the modern day Wendy Williams. No mess.
Honestly, no, no mess, no mess.
No
We
mess.
love it. It's amazing. I would say, like, when I first started out, I didn't have a community per se. Like, I had obviously people were following the page, but it was like still very much like in the early stages of growing. One thing that's was important for me was to do things alone. Like, I would go to events alone. I actually met so many incredible people that I know today and that I, consider a part of our
Same.
community, just through going to an event. Like, if you see something that looks cool on Instagram, you don't have to send it to your friend and wait for her to be like, okay, girl, yeah, let's go. If you want to go, go. Actually, I think that going alone is even more beneficial because you can work
Yes.
the room by yourself. You
Yes.
don't have to like look like you're waiting for someone to come up to you. When you're going by yourself, you're going to be more inclined to approach other people. And you'll
Yes.
be surprised. Like, there's so many videos. If you are someone who struggles with social anxiety or you feel like you're awkward or whatever, there's so many videos on how to, kind of dive into small talk and like learn how to build those connections. So I would say definitely community through action, like literally going out there. And most likely, if you are listening to this podcast, like you are someone who's interested in entrepreneurship or business or design, or you're just fascinated by Brittany like I am. But if you are any of those
I
things,
adore
like,
you.
literally, if you're any of those things, like you probably are someone that embraces curiosity. So why not lean into it, right? Like why like
Mm.
stifle that? Why keep that inside? And I would also say, you have to care about your community. Respond to DMs, respond to the comments. If you don't have the time to do it, fine. Again, this goes back to having a team and having support. Get a virtual assistant, get somebody else, or hire an intern. And I think you should pay your interns, but that's neither here nor there. But having somebody that can help you and that can be there with you to make sure you're engaging with your community. A lot of people that follow
Mm.
Saddie Baddies have followed us literally from day one, and they've seen us grow. We've watched them grow. We've watched them, move across the country or like leave jobs or get married or have kids. Like, we've seen our community grow too, and it's beautiful.
Yes.
So remember that even if you only have like, I think one thing that people do is focus too much on numbers, right? I have seen
Yes.
some brilliant, brilliant content that has like 200 likes where I think it should have like 15,000 likes, right? That doesn't change the value of the content. I'm still going to
No.
save that post. I'm still going to send it to somebody, right? Or a
Hmm.
podcast that you're like, damn, why is nobody listening to this podcast? This is such a good podcast. That's not going to stop you from listening to it, right?
Yeah.
So don't focus so much on the numbers, because sometimes as entrepreneurs, I think we hyper focus on the numerical value or the quantitative, but we should also focus more on the qualitative, right? Like, I've created things that I feel like I've spent so much time on and it just didn't hit.
Oh man, your heart gets broken.
You
You
get you
created the
feel
prettiest graphic,
heartbroken,
and then you
right?
just see like 3 likes in
It's
five
like,
hours.
why y'all doing this to me, please? Like, but one thing I've learned, a little secret I've done is when that happens is to recreate it. Like, you could recycle. Again,
Mm.
this needs to be like a
Remember that
separate
meme where he's like,
yeah, this might need to be a separate like podcast episode, but like sustainability. If this you feel like your content has gone to waste, reuse it, recycle it.
oh,
How can you refresh it?
that
Make
is
it
gold.
right. Like, if it's a post and you feel like the carousel post wasn't working, make it a video. If it was a video and you feel like maybe this could be a blog, maybe this could be a podcast, whatever it is, like, think outside the box. Don't be so rigid with how you think about things, because it is not necessarily a reflection of you. It's not a reflection of your brilliance, of your work ethic, of your potential. And just pivot and keep it moving, keep it fluid, keep it
I
fresh.
love that. Vanity metrics. I had did this
Yes.
post before talking about impact over impressions and
Yes.
how we'll sit there and we will let vanity metrics determine our value in
Which
our
is
minds.
insane.
Like, okay, people hate you because only 2 people like the post, but not realizing that even though maybe 10 people like that
Yeah.
post, you got one inquiry, right? So
Yes.
we're not
Yes.
looking at it from that standpoint, but you need to create a podcast episode. Like, here I am being the
Yes.
idea girl right now. You need to do an episode, and I'm pretty sure the people listening can agree
Yes.
on how to create more sustainable content, because being a
Yes.
content machine is a lot. I'm the person who's writing all my newsletters. I'm writing all the blog posts.
And
I'm
they're
designing
so
all the
good.
graphics.
Your
Thank
newsletters
you.
are fire. Your launches, your
Thank
draft,
you.
your course, everything that you,
Oh my
it's incredibly intentional, and it's
Thank
well,
you.
it's beautiful. It's literally
Thank you.
beautiful. I'm not even like, it's gorgeous.
I appreciate you so much. It's funny because this is actually one of my favorite jobs I've ever had, was creating for myself. Like I actually get so excited creating these things, and now I'm into editing. So now I know how to add sounds, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. So I
Yeah.
again, we gonna need a in-person type situation,
Yes.
workshop or episode where you gonna break
Come on
down
the
for us
podcast. Come on the
how to
spotlight.
create more
Yes.
sustainable content, because it makes so much sense. Like, okay, this didn't do that. This didn't do well.
Right.
Right. When we're talking
Right.
about it from like a quantitative approach, this
Right.
didn't do well in regards to numbers.
Yeah.
Take that, rework the post, repost it, get out of your head. Right. So I love that. That is probably one of the best pieces of advice that I probably could have had. But I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
What's one piece of advice you wish someone had given you when you first started out as an entrepreneur?
Oh my gosh. Um, One piece of advice that I wish I got is that you need money to make money, right?
Oh, that's right.
That
Ching,
doesn't, that
ching.
you need money to make money, but also in the same breath, you can do so much with absolutely like a blank canvas too. Like as I mentioned,
Mm,
like when I started Saddie Baddies, I borrowed my cousin's laptop, or it was given to me, right? Um, my first iPad that I had, also given to me, right? Like these are things that like I didn't go out and like purchase these things, or I didn't have like the iMac and like the MacBook Air and all these like gadgets and things like that to make me feel like an entrepreneur. I just had the spirit of one. And that came
mm,
from my mom. My mom she's a cosmetologist. So she had
yes.
her own salons, like, and throughout like our lives. And I saw her work herself to the bone, like work her ass off.
A
And
cosmetologist,
yes,
hairstylist, they literally work
yes,
themselves
right.
into the
Like
ground.
even, right, they really do. And so she has clientele to this day. Like some of her clients have seen me grow up. Like they've known me since I was 5. And like I call them my aunties because they used to come get their hair done. And I'm like, like it's one of those things that I've learned a lot about entrepreneurship through my mom. And a lot of it was the grit. So she told me, like when I started my business, that you're gonna need to be strong. You're gonna need to be really focused. And obviously what she did was completely, it was a service based, and she works with her hands and it's physical. But she told me that just remember your why, like keep that at the center of what you do. And so I think that's something that I would share with other people. Like you said, if your why does not make you
Your
cry,
business will not survive.
period. Period. I love that. It really is that. And so always remember your why, go back to your why. And if you can't remember your why, you probably need to take a break. Like you probably should take a few days off online. You probably need
Maybe a
to
week, maybe
a week,
weeks,
maybe a
months.
month, whatever it is. If you starting to feel resentful, you start to feel like
That's when you
anxious,
know
all
you got
those
to step
signs,
back.
you should take a step back, and it's probably time to take a break. But it's okay to take a break, but don't quit. If this is really, really what you want, this is your calling, and you'll know if it's your calling because it's what you are obsessed with, kind of, if that's really your calling, then you're going to find a way to keep it going, but take a break. It's okay.
Yes.
And we think that people are going to be like, oh, what happened to this person? Yo, there's times where like even some of my friends, I'm like, they're like, oh yeah, I took a social media break. I'm like, oh really? I did not, like, I didn't even know. Like we think that obviously, like, when your close friends are not posting for days on end, you're gonna check in on them in real life, or so I would hope. But what I'm saying is that we think people have us under a microscope. We think people are like peering into our,
And like this
like,
all the time.
yeah, like what she got going on today. Some people, you might have ops who are doing that.
Not ops.
If you got ops, listen, we all have ops. Some of us do, some of us don't. But listen, maybe your ops are, but the
I think
majority,
my ops love me. They just don't want to admit it. It's like secret
they're obsessed
obsession.
with you. They're obsessed. I mean, ops stands for the opposition, but it's also the opportunity to be you. That's what they want.
Mm,
They
I
want,
know that's right. Put that on a shirt. Put that on a shirt.
they're obsessed, but I say that like don't even regard them and focus on what is important, focus on your real life and take breaks. We think people are paying like such close attention to our every move. And that's why I say to recycle the content. Because you go through Instagram, how many posts are you seeing in 2 minutes? You're probably seeing like over 100 posts, right?
Overstimulation.
You're not going to remember probably 3 of them. Repost the content. Keep it moving.
Repost the content, keep it moving, and fuck your apps. Okay. I love it. I love it. So just to ask, I like to say, where you at? What are you currently working on, and how can we support you?
Oh, so right now we are in the process of releasing our first live podcast episode, which I'm very excited about. We recorded in April and we had our first live podcast event. So very excited for that. And then be on the lookout for that coming out in the next few days. And then also we are planning to take the podcast to the West Coast. So we want to do a few episodes in LA, Oakland. Like we have a lot of people that in the West Coast that are part of the Saddie Baddies and the soft life like community and really want to like have that IRL experience. So we are planning for that and would love to see people show up and support. But honestly, signing up for our newsletter, it's on our website.
And listen to the Saddies, Baddies, Soft Life.
Yes,
podcast.
The Soft Life podcast. Of course, we would love to have you on, Brittany. We are gonna have you on.
I'm coming.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be there.
We'd love to have you on because there's so many gems that we can share. And honestly, the best way you can show up for us is to show up for yourself and take care of yourself and stay soft, literally. So
I love that.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a quick spit round, right?
Ooh, I love it.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 60 seconds on the clock and I'm going to ask you either or questions, right? So it's going to be like red or blue, right?
Okay.
It's going to be like, green or yellow. And then I'm going to need you to give me an answer. So hold on. Let me get my clock ready. Okay. Timer. 60 seconds on the clock. Go. Girlfriends or living single?
Girlfriends.
A year tax-free or $2,000 a month?
Tax-free.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Journaling or voice notes?
Ooh. To myself, journaling. To others, voice notes.
In-person therapy or telehealth?
In person.
Podcast or YouTube?
Ooh. Podcast.
Massage or manicure?
Manicure.
Zara or H&M?
That's a good one. I'm gonna go with Zara.
Brooklyn or Harlem?
Harlem.
Smoothie or green juice?
Smoothie.
Yoga or Pilates?
Pilates.
Retreat in the desert or island vacation? Ooh,
island vacation. Island vacation.
The rest was hero or bacon, egg, and cheese.
Oh, okay. I would pick a bacon, egg, and cheese.
Right. Okay. And I think hard copy book or ebook. I'm a hard copy book girl.
Hard copy all the way.
I'm a hard copy girl. Oh my gosh.
This is so fun. Those are good. Those are good questions.
Thank you so much, Priscilla, for
Brittany.
joining us today. I am so grateful, and I'm pretty sure everyone is just taking in all of the gems that you dropped. I am still on the content sustainability aspect of the conversation.
Yes.
A freaking just like, I just have so many ideas at this point now where I'm just like, girl, I'm going to go back to the things I've already done. But again, thank you so much for being here. Can you share with our listeners where they can find you and where they can support you on the online spaces?
Of course. Yeah. So you can find me. My personal Instagram is Priscilla O Agyeman. I also, sorry, like spaced out for a second. Rebooting. Okay, so you can find Saddie Baddies at Saddie_Baddies. And you can also find us on Twitter, on YouTube, TikTok, all the Pinterest. We love our Pinterest. You can also find us on our website, SaddieBaddies.com. This is where we have our blog. We have our resources, our mental health resources, which you can find that are super accessible and that we update regularly. And yeah, I think obviously the Soft Life podcast on Spotify.
Subscribe to the Soft Life
Pod. Yes. Leave a rating and a review. That is also just a great way to stay connected with us. We'll be back with an episode next week. So yeah, thank you so much, Brittany. This is amazing.
Thank you so much again. And to all of our listeners, I hope you were able again to soak everything in. Priscilla is a gem, and she is here to help us take better care of our mind, bodies, and spirits. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Until next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to the Not So CEO Talk Show. If you want to keep the conversation flowing, don't forget to hit subscribe and follow us on all social media platforms at Not So CEO. You can also stay in the loop by stacking our newsletter, The Paper. Until next time, remember, being self-made shouldn't compromise self-care. This is Not So CEO, signing off.